To the chat. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chat from the Deep, our weekly live stream post-session discussion. We talk about what just happened during D&D. This is the chat for session 51. So if you've not watched that session yet, please go do that because there will be spoilers. I'm your DM, Eric, and joining me we have a Gottwald's player, Chris.
Hello.
And Max player, Raymond.
Hello.
And finally, talk about something other than the big battle at the floating lair, which
will be the big battle in the hotel room.
the big battle in the hotel room, yeah. Yeah, so I've been really kind of spoiled the last couple of weeks because obviously I haven't had to prep much of your current area. What I've been trying to do is prep this next area for a while. And unfortunately, this is a section that is a lot of like exploratory stuff without maps, basically. And I'm trying to condense. Well, I guess I'm interested in your opinion. I'm trying to condense into like a series of events and scenes versus wandering around the village, because this isn't like it's not like you have a map of the village and you're like, okay, we can go to this location, this location, this location. It's not like that kind of a deal, or like the lost city of Rhyme of the Frostmaiden was like, here's this big end game city area you get to. That's where you're like, how big is this village? I'm like, it's pretty small. Like, it's not even really a location per se. It's more like a rest stop.
Yeah.
Which is hard to convey to the party, I think.
Yeah. It feels. I mean, it feels very on rails at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think it's intentional. You know. Yeah, and especially if you, as you say, there's no map for the village. There's no, it's just In the book, does it just talk about the village, but doesn't actually like? Is the gap wider in the book where it's like we can explore the village, but there's no map for it?
Right. Yeah, but there's nothing to do.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's just like you
can explore, but there's no value to it.
Well, the value is it's supposed to be experiencing a bunch of like nightmarish scenes, and that's supposed to like set the mood for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of just did that as like, hey, everybody's kind of creepy. I think I went a little bit less supernatural with it here.
Oh, really?
Than what the book wants to do. So I don't know. I'm curious about your feedback from from all this, but
I'm not sure what was originally done, so I'm not sure I can.
Well, I also got to thinking about the Kraken Society and how like I want to paint it as this, it kind of like that creepy village feel where it's like everybody's in on the local cult thing is kind of how I was going after it.
Yeah,
but the problem I ran into is I didn't want the entire village to be hostile to you guys, which is usually how the third act of that horror movie plays out.
Right.
Whereas this situation, it was more like there's some bad actors here, and I wanted to introduce like the one character who is at least seems trustworthy, who can kind of explain what's going on and give some context to what's going on, versus you guys just thinking like, oh, this. And it's also tricky to pull off the whole like evil village thing when the players are so high level and you're like, oh, well, we can just come in and like burn this whole fucker to the ground. So I'm also thinking of that. Like, there's a different like if you guys show up at like second or third level, then I can probably pull that off and make it like really sinister and creepy and all that. But at this level, I'm like, I can't really, I don't know, pull off the whole like, oh, everybody here is like evil and twitchy. We should just start like, I don't know. It just comes off a little weird when you guys come in as like super powered superheroes.
Sure, yeah. I think our problem, like right now, right in the specific situation we're in at the moment, is just that we're kind of blind. Like we literally got dropped here, because a psychic vision said this is where we should go, but we have no context for what exactly it is that's happening here in this village.
Yeah.
Or if this village is, I mean, I guess it must be related to the the Kraken in some
Which
way,
is
but we don't really know what we're doing here. I guess is the thing. Like we don't know what our objective is at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, that,
except to explore and see what happens around us as we explore.
That's partly why I wanted to make sure the first like person you interacted with was somebody who could provide information to you.
Some context to what's going on in the village. Yes.
And the way I organized it was I knew you guys had to rest like first thing off the bat.
Right.
Because there's a series of events and things I was going to throw at you guys, and I'm like, well, the first thing they're going to need to do is long rest. So the first thing I can do is fuck with them during that long rest to kind of to as me taking one of those like immersion exploration things about a creepy thing happening. This could be the thing. And thinking about using
to use setting up the evil of the village or
whatever. The evil of the village, not necessarily like the whole village is out to kill you, but like, hey, you're in danger while you're here, kind of a thing. There's a couple of different creatures I could have used, but there was one in particular that's used in a different scene in the village, and it's called a slithering tracker, and it's this water ooze, which whole ability is that it's got that ability where it's like indistinguishable from a puddle of water. It's got the ooze ability to slip in anywhere, and then it can envelop you as part. I was like, this is fucking perfect. Like it's all watery themed. It's very creepy. We can theme it around like this nightmare happening, and then this creature. So that was my plan, was to ambush you.
It also gets around what we were talking about, which is like we're probably going to be more on guard than you wanted us to be. So I had to stop you and be like, hold on, no, we're gonna actually like.
So I like
guards here.
I like that you said that, and I talked about that during the crafting stream, which is me mentioning that, like, gosh, I don't think in this entire campaign I've ever actually ambushed them at night or during a long rest, nor have they even necessarily had to long rest anywhere that was dangerous,
right? Because anywhere public, really. Like we haven't had a long rest anywhere where like anyone knew we were there,
which is vastly different from the last 2 campaigns I've run. Whereas you guys have been in like remote, exotic locations of setting up camp, like in some dangerous area, and having to worry
dangerous
about that.
there.
Yeah. And I mentioned that during the crafting, and I was like, so I wonder if they will think to even like, hey, we need to like set up guards and all this, or if they'll just be like, all right, we're going to sleep, we're gonna level up pretty soon. So I appreciate you like interrupting me and saying like, now wait a minute, because I said to my everybody that was on the chat is like, I don't necessarily if I should be forthright about telling them like, hey,
do you want to set up a guard? Do you want
right, because then that kind of tips my cards a little too much. So there was it's a difficult thing as a DM.
I will say the only thing that I let it slide because I'm like, fine, it makes a better scenario. I don't think we meant to just leave Borges as the sole guard. I think we meant to like when we said like we're gonna have like shifts. We meant like half of us are gonna be awake and half of us are not. But then when you're like, and Borges is asleep, I'm like, all right, fine. It's because it makes a better scene. It's fine.
I probably pictured in my mind like he was the first
one of us to be asleep, to be awake. And,
But all of you were kind of content. It's even, and I liked what Toro was even saying. Like in universe, is like, hey, we're safe here. They're not gonna fuck with us. So I thought you guys would be like, all right, Borges, you take the first shift, and then maybe Borges just fell asleep. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like. In like wilderness danger situations, like you were talking about the last campaigns, like that's one thing where it's like, okay, we're gonna keep set watch and whatever if any dangers come across. Yeah. But to me personally, that's less dangerous than the people that we don't know if we can trust know where we are sleeping right now.
Yeah,
that is the more like. Okay, that is like we need to really be like eyes on the doors, eyes on the windows sort of situation.
Yeah.
I think that's because this scenario reminded me of it. I did this exact same scenario to you guys in the Storm King's Thunder campaign. We're in the middle of the night, like I put like one assassin for each of you. Yeah. And there's like one assassin with like daggers raised above each of you as you were sleeping. I'm like, okay, Eric's pulling an Assassin's in the Night
with the proverbial daggers raised.
Yep.
So one interesting thing that I struggled with was how to do the interrupting of the rest thing. Shout out to longtime fan of the show and patron Refus, who said that when he attacks everybody during a rest, what he does is he rolls a d8, and that's the hour in which it happens because it's 8-hour long rest.
Yeah.
And he says if it's a 1, they don't get any kind of rest. They just get interrupted. If it's a 2 through 6, they get the benefits of a short rest. And if it's 7 through 8, then they actually already got their full long rest. The way I do
it's almost worse because that means you don't get to go back to sleep.
Kind of, yeah. It's like, hey, here's the start of your adventuring day,
So
and you have to be.
yeah, I did. Actually, I don't want to interrupt you, but
Well, to continue on that, I will say I took the compromise and said, well, let's just go ahead and let them short rest.
okay, middle ground.
And I also checked all your stat sheets and said, actually, even though we had a huge long combat and they're all drained, they've actually only short rested once for this entire adventuring day.
Oh, that's interesting.
And you, I don't think ever did because I think that was the week you were gone that they short rested.
Oh,
so
I
weirdly,
probably did when I came back.
they had a ton of dice to use for the short rest. Now I knew that would still screw the wizard over because she had nothing left and she doesn't get anything back on a long rest.
She did fine though.
She did fine, yeah. But I was like, this allows them to not be TPK'd by this fight basically because they were so almost dead, and works out as a slight compromise. That's why I was like, all right, everybody short rest. The only bad thing is it definitely interrupted the pacing, especially when everybody was trying to figure out the whole hit dice thing, because I was like, all right, I was setting the scene for like,
right, and it's like, okay,
this creepy thing happening,
mess with your hit dice.
and then you're gonna roll initiative. Oh wait, roll your a short rest real quick, and everybody spent like 10 minutes going through this whole hit dice thing. I'm like, this totally ruined the flow of my
right. You forget short rest is a thing.
It's a whole thing.
Takes a minute. Yeah,
everybody has to like roll for their hit dice stuff. And it's like, and then we start the combat, but there was no way to do it before because you guys never even knew you were gonna get that short rest.
I guess,
so I
although you could have just been the ominous, harbinger and been like, okay, everybody, without telling us why, everybody roll short rest stuff.
Even like, wait,
and then once that's done, you're like, all right, now here's what happens.
All right, I'm just like, what the fuck? Why aren't we getting our long rest?
Why are you having to do this?
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I did hit on during the session. There's always the gap between mechanics and real world, right? Like a narrative versus the way way it mechanically works. Because in my head, there's no reason why we couldn't just stay in bed longer. Like it doesn't have to be you have to wake up after 8 hours. We could just sleep longer. Right? Like you could just sleep another 4 hours. Yeah, the shift thing or the waking up thing. Like if you wake up halfway through the 8-hour rest, well, now you've only got 4 hours. Like, well, fuck it, I'll just sleep 8 hours after that. Like,
yeah.
I feel like that's a weird like
I guess
gap in the logic where like you can't go back to sleep. Like, well, why not?
Well, you can sleep, but there's some rule about you can't benefit from a long rest more than once in 24 hours, I think, somewhere.
Which that's fine. Yeah, I can see that being the case.
Yeah.
But like a lot of stuff is like if your long rest is interrupted. Yeah. It's like, well, we'll just sleep another 8 hours. Like if if you don't get the benefits of the long rest the first time, just try it again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same problem I have when people like when it's like, oh, just throw like time constraints on them if they're long resting too much. I'm like, well, can't always do that in the plot. And like we're already having to stretch belief a lot of times to make the time constraints work. So
yep.
Yeah, and that's and I obviously I feel the same bullshit about the resting thing, which is why I was like, I had no intention of the question is whether I wanted to do it before you guys rested or after, and I was thinking I can't do it before because you guys are almost dead. I could do it after as, it does start eating into your adventuring day, but this was not meant to be a big fight either.
Sure.
But
it ended up not being terribly resource heavy. Yeah.
And shout out to Refus for suggesting the short rest things. I think that worked out.
Yeah. That's a good compromise.
It did allow Twirl to I forget the warlock, gets basically fully recharged on a short rest. So he's like, oh, I'm gonna break out with my fucking banish. Which was a big deal for sure.
Yep.
But having your NPCs around in that fight worked out really well too. Borges was able to rip off one of them, and then Samblay got that huge crit on like one of them.
Yep.
So they're still with you guys so far, and it was very. I'd always planned on having the Tritons leave because this was a good opportunity to do that. And I like that you picked up and like, yeah, let's let them go and get reinforcements and lighten our load. Basically,
that's one of those things where like. I don't know how you would have reacted. I almost want to try it one time just see what happens.
Right,
if we just fucking fought you on you. Yeah, if we just fought you on it. Like, just told them no. Like, no, you're not going anywhere. You're staying with us.
We can talk about the merit thing because that's another thing that, like, technically I had...
Oh, right.
I wanted to go one direction, but I was not going to force anybody to go in that direction.
Yeah.
So the Merid thing was one. And the Tritons, yeah, you guys could have said, no, I want you guys to stay with us. And I would have had to slightly, you know, bring them onto the map because I was literally planning on not having them there.
Right.
But then they could have stayed with you guys. But maybe it wouldn't have gotten some kind of Deus Ex, you know, Triton army at some point either. Which now I've got in my back pocket. So I'm eating Halloween candy, by the way. There's so much Halloween candy in my house.
Oh, nice.
I think we ended up with a net
the Halo
negative.
gummies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we ended up with a net negative, though. We had, you know what the average like Halloween candy bag is you can see at the grocery store? With, like, just a huge variety. We had 4 of those, and we went through all of them giving out candy.
Oh, right. Like how much you spent giving candy away versus how much
like
you brought
volume
home
of candy, I think we ended up with less than what we got because I've only got the 2 kids.
Yep.
But still a pretty good amount of candy. We had fun. Yeah, so I had.
Yeah, we could have fought. We could have fought either. And
we could have fought either,
honestly,
for sure.
Heather played along, but it was mostly because, like, you know, Gotwall was going to like stick to his deal. He was a scrupulous character,
right? Right, and my plan was literally to reward you guys with inspiration if you followed the bargain. Yeah. But technically, you could have been like, "No, fuck you. We're going to keep this Merid conch, and we can."
You're too valuable. You got to stick around.
And he'll be really pissy about it and fight you with it, and maybe try to convince the next people, like, "Hey, fight these guys."
Well, that's the thing. Like that. I mean, honestly, that could have been fun to have. Like now I'm thinking about it. Like
an unwilling,
like a character that we can command, but then he can work around the commands and fuck us over.
And like a monkey paw situation, you have to be like very specific about you. Yeah. But I think part of what we know is like, you know, we're trying to lighten the NPC load a little bit because we had a lot, and I think we all worked through that. And it's like, let's get rid of the Triton, let's get rid of the Merid, and then that makes it a little bit less overhead.
It's like it's fine
to deal with here. Yeah, because you guys ended up with a lot at the end of last session. Yep. So that was the plan, and then so that's why I warned you guys that like, hey, we're gonna plan on long resting, but it's not gonna be at the start of the session because I had that ambush plan. And then we ended up taking, you know, a while because we had the dialogue with the Merid, and then we talked to the priest for a while before we actually got to the long rest, before we got to the ambush scene. Obviously, the fight took a little bit of time. So by the time we got to the long rest, I was like, okay, we're actually doing it at the end of the session.
Right, the very end.
Versus maybe the middle. Because I had the whole next temple thing planned out.
Mm-hmm.
But
did we move slower than you thought we were going to move?
A little bit, just because I think the dialogue stuff, you know, it's so hard to plan for that, right? Like, you can kind of plan for, like, how long combat's going to last and how long level up's going to last.
We wanted to talk to the Merid for a while.
Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, I think, honestly, as a DM, I'm very happy when dialogue scenes go longer because that means it's successful for me versus ones where you're like, you know, okay, fine, you know, we don't have anything. Go. It's like, oh, okay. So it's in my favor where it works out longer. It just obviously, you know, and what I've got planned is still going to happen. It's just, I've got that much more in reserve now.
Yeah.
So I do apologize about the more railroadiness, but
it's fine. I mean, it doesn't feel bad. It feels like we're going somewhere. Like it feels like this is like almost like a transitional section. You know, like
This is kind of the
we came out of one big open area and we're on like a transitional section to the next open area or
basically
something like that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but
yeah. I guess you could have talked to Frannis a little bit more and asked him some more pertinent questions. Had you thought to ask him, like, do you know where the Fathomless is? Like all these kind of like things that, you know, maybe we could talk to a priest of the Kraken. You know, I wasn't going to be very forthcoming about that because maybe he doesn't even quite trust you guys all the way.
Sure.
But there was some dialogue options there that could have been explored perhaps. But he's there in the next scene, so.
Right, he's around, yeah.
Yeah, which be curious to see how the next scene goes. And then, yeah, we're basically entering the end game now, so.
Yeah.
I don't know how many sessions are left. I also don't know if we're going to level up again. That'll be an interesting thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
I mean, a lot of the previous, you know, campaigns, we got to, I think, 11 at the end, maybe 12 at, like, the very, very end. And I'm trying to emulate this one, pacing out about the same.
Yeah.
But it's hard to tell right now because we still got some stuff to go.
Right.
Anything else about session 51?
Nope.
I like by the time I was also Not sure about when to trigger his showing up.
Oh, the priest guy. Yeah.
The priest
When
guy.
he
'Cause
would-
my plan was to have him show up and then still have a meaningful say in the fight.
Mhm. Unfortunately, well, which I guess it's narratively interesting actually to me now in hindsight, but the time at which he showed up to me was really suspicious. 'Cause, like, he showed up once we we won,
Yeah.
but he showed up to be like, "Oh, I'm here to help." I'm like, "All right,
Yeah.
this guy is fucking. He's just showing up now because
Which is
we're about to
okay.
win."
He's not. He's still. That's rolled insight and everything. Like, yeah, you should be suspicious. But like I said, it was tricky for me, like mechanically, to figure out when to have him appear because I'm not sure how fast you guys are going to take these enemies out.
Right.
And it turns out and I had him roll initiative secretly on the GM layer, so he was at least on the initiative order. And then I was really sweating bullets, like shit, is he even going to show up before all these guys get murdered because Toril banished that one so
they're
quickly.
not. They don't. I mean, how hard are these enemies? They didn't seem like once we got them off of us, it didn't seem like they were too terribly much of a threat.
No,
I guess we were making good saves on the smothering.
On the smother. Yeah, they're only CR3. They have an average of about 40 hit points and an AC of 14. Their whole thing is they're like they're ambush. I mean, kind of like a mimic, and it's like it seems scary, but like once you know it's there, it's less scary.
It's less scary.
So kind of their opening salvo is nasty. But yeah, they take one whole action to just do their smothering attack.
And if it doesn't work, they haven't done anything.
Right. If it doesn't work, they haven't done anything. But you guys made those saves. Which you guys can't make saves if you're unconscious. Can't make dex saves.
Yep.
If you do become grappled, then you take damage on your turn, and then on their turn, they can do that slam attack. So it's basically a really bad 1-2 punch. I could have, instead of smothering, done their slam attack, but I feel like they would always try to do their smother on people. So
right.
But it is sucky that if they don't get that off, you guys make the save, then they just don't get back on, which I think 2 of them had a chance to get back on, or maybe even 3, and just none of them were able to quite get on yet.
Right, yeah.
But that's fine. It was mainly the scary thing at the start.
Yeah.
And plus, I knew you guys went in a long rest after this, so it was
right.
more
so
of
we could, yeah.
It's almost more of a flavor thing at that point, like to where you're like, oh shit, we're targeted while we're sleeping, and like your fears were basically justified, which is we are not safe here. And then Franz was like, you're not safe here.
What if we didn't have a watch? Oh wait, we didn't have one. He fell asleep, right? Never mind.
So had you guys been really aggressive about the watching, be like, no, I'm gonna set the first shift, you're gonna do second shift and all that. I think these things are really, really good at stealth. They've got spider climb, so they can
Did you use surprise in this at all? I didn't notice, but
I guess I DM cheated, but I basically said that their surprise was just them automatically doing their smother.
Oh, the smother, because we woke up smothered.
Because you started, which was me like...
Which makes sense. That
as we were
unconscious. So
you're unconscious. Yeah, and they kind of slurp up to you and they just automatically smother. So in other words, when everybody started their turn, they had to take that necrotic damage at the start, and then you all got to do a thing. And I think all 4 of you ended up having to do that, and then I think all 4 of you, except for Savra, which Borges helped her, were able to get out of that thing after that first round, and then it wasn't a big deal from there.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So it wasn't like surprise mechanically, but you had your surprise round
the surprise basically them getting in that position.
Was them getting in the position to smother. Yeah.
And you guys like automatically failing an X save because you're literally at the unconscious condition. But yeah, in terms of if somebody had said a watch to try to see them, they have a +8 to stealth. They have false appearance, which means they look like water if nobody's watching them. They can squeeze as far as 1 inch wide, and they have spider climb.
Which I would have argued in that scenario, like everybody who's asleep would have played out exactly the same. I would have only argued, and even the person awake not noticing that their teammates are getting smothered.
What I probably would have done is start combat right before they actually smother everybody. Yeah. And have the guy going like, wait a minute, this is ooze. There's a water creeping up the bed. That's not
my
right.
leg. Yeah, what's going on? It looks down like there's water coming up.
So we probably would have rolled initiative there. Maybe I would have given you guys disadvantage on initiative or something, which is the 2024 rules. And then gone from there without them in the smothering position. But even then, I may have to have the watch guy roll a perception check to see that.
I gotta say,
that person could be watching somewhere else.
That everybody else sleeping was getting smothered. I feel like you could have pulled that off, where it's like they're focused on the door,
right?
So they don't see to their left.
So I would have forced a perception check and probably put a DC 18 on it because they have an average stealth of +8. So that's probably how we would have done it.
Yeah. But
All right.
alas, Borges fell asleep.
Alas, but made up for it, man. Borges.
He did. He always makes up for it.
Other than being DM put to sleep through a cutscene, he always
couldn't
comes
keep him
through.
down for long.
Yep. Oh yeah, and then the stone thing was if you fail the charisma save, it's short-term madness. If you fail by 5 or more, it is long-term madness. And you just roll on those madness tables. Some of those are bad too.
So that's just one of those tricks where it's like the DM presents you something where it's like, maybe you want to
It
do
seems
this.
innocuous, yeah.
And if you, well, it almost seems like you should do it.
You should
because,
do
like,
it right because
everybody else
everybody's
is
doing
doing
it. You're like, yeah, I like the way it's presented. It's like, it's a very sinister trap because like all the locals are doing it. It's like, oh, I need to do it to blend in, but actually they're like all inured to the effects of the fathomless, and whereas you guys, it like freaks you out.
Yeah.
Even
If we
Toro
thought-
has a +9 with advantage.
I know.
I was like, there's
He
no
rolled
way he's failing
2
this.
4s? Is that what
He
he
rolled 2
I think
4s, yeah.
Ugh.
Because I think it
If
was
we
a
were
DC
smart,
15.
if we were smart and thought about it for 2 seconds, we would have like motioned as if we were good doing it, but not actually done it. You know, like made
Yeah.
the movement, but not actually touched it.
Just look like you were doing it.
Look
I'll be
like
like,
you're
give
doing
me a
it.
sleight of hand, and if you fail that, you
Right,
accidentally.
then you actually touch it.
Finally,
Yep.
we use the sleight of hand check.
Yeah.
All right, I think that will do it for this week's Chat from the Deep. Thank you to Chris and Raymond for joining me. Thank you to all our fans for watching, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.